Welcome to Generous Impact. This is Brett Brummett.
And my name is Amanda Brummett. We are joined today by Jeff Middleton, co-founder of Boise Vertical Farms. In this episode, you'll learn a little bit about farming and a lot about offering people in recovery a hand up. Boise Vertical Farms creates a safe community that provides hope and employment resources for individuals in substance abuse recovery through growing local produce. If you don't personally know someone impacted by substance misuse, it's truly hard to understand how difficult it is to obtain and keep employment both during and after recovery. The system is really stacked against them. I hope that today's show will give you a glimpse into the good work that they are doing and how it benefits all of society. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here with us today. Before we get into the details about Boise Vertical Farm, can you first share with us who you are and what your life looked like before Boise Vertical Farm?
Well, I have been clean and sober for 14 years. I struggled with drugs and alcohol for many years. Finally got sober and clean in my 50s, so I'm one of the older ones to finally get it, but I got it, and it appears to be sticking. But on my trip through recovery, I was given community service hours as part of my sentence for possession of prescription drugs. I was an opiate addict, had been an opiate addict for many years. Typical story, started with injuries and the like, and started on opiates and then fell into them more and more all the time. But of course, I was born with the disease of addiction, so it stuck, and it gets, and you slide in it deeper and deeper and deeper as time goes on. If you don't get it under control, if you don't get it handled, it will kill you. So it was actually a good thing I got caught and got cleaned up, doing much better all the way around now. But on my way through, I was given community service hours. Choice for community service hours were sorting used clothes, sitting in jail, or picking up trash on the side of the road. And this does nothing for people. This is not something that gets them toward recovery, gets them out of the use of drugs and alcohol, gets them thinking of their life in general, getting them cleaned up. Most people relapse right away. Any type of recovery program, it doesn't matter what the recovery program is, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of getting away clean for long term, which means that you have a 5 in 6 chance of relapsing. And that's usually what happens is we put people through the program, then turn them loose, and they relapse. So in the time that I was coming through, I was trying to think of other ways that we could give things for people to do that they might get interested in and do more for trying to keep people clean and sober long term.
Wow. Well, a couple of things. One, as somebody with several loved ones that have suffered with addiction, I appreciate that your approach and even the language you use. I love that you pointed out that you were born with this disease, because it's a disease, and then there, was a catalyst in your life, an injury that led to that. So I think that narrative is really important to explain. And then also, just so our listeners know, Jeff, you're not a random person. You are intelligent. You've got an MBA. You've got a pharmacy degree. Can you give us a little bit of your professional resume so they understand what kind of person put this together?
Well, yeah, I've been mostly retail pharmacy for a good portion of my career. I went back to school in my 40s. I wanted to get out of retail pharmacy because being around pills all the time just didn't do it for me. I think we're way, way, way over in the amount of pills that are prescribed, how many people use. There's some remarkable pharmaceuticals out there, but I mean, it's different now, but when I was in it, opiates were unbelievable. I mean, we shoveled them out by the truckload to people. Most of the people were addicts. When I was working as an addict, I was a high functioning addict. But along the way, I tried to get out of it. So I went back to school, got an MBA in clinical information systems. So I was trying to get into the IT department of hospitals and healthcare organizations to build software programs for doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and the like.
Which is quite a jump. I mean, to look through professional career, recovery, trying to go out through the IT route, which makes me wonder where along the way did that shift to, forming the idea to use a farm as a vehicle to start a second chance employer?
Okay. Actually the idea started, I was over skiing in Jackson Hole, and it's called Vertical Harvest over there, and it's 3 floors of a rotating conveyor belt sort of operation that grows greens, microgreens, tomatoes, vegetables in the middle of the winter in Jackson Hole, which is quite a feat. It's three floors on the end of a parking garage that the city of Jackson gives the organization Vertical Harvest. The conveyor belt rotates through the sun and then back up to trays, and the trays are made so people in wheelchairs can scoot up to them and work the vegetables. Their thing, Vertical Harvest, is their social enterprise part is people in wheelchairs and physically handicapped. So they take people from the area and employ them in their warehouse growing things. So I saw this, I thought it was a fantastic idea. So on my way driving home, I figured, that we could do the same thing in Boise, and we could easily match it with recovery and put together a program. We do a lot of things different than Vertical Harvest. We're not for profit, they're for profit. We went nonprofit because of the ability to get funding through grants and donations. We grow in towers and we grow flat. Major difference between Jackson Hole and Boise is Vertical Harvest in Jackson Hole started with $3.8 million. We started with $380. So that's the big difference between the two living areas.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I put it. That was kind of the start. So when I got back, a co-founder and I got together and figured out how we were going to put this together.
And then at what point did you want to make it a second chance employer and not just a farm through a recovery process or program?
Well, it came about with access to labor force. We get our labor force from the court systems, Gem County to Elmore County and everything in between. They come to us with requiring community service hours as part of their sentence. So we essentially get the labor free to us with a few requirements and stipulations, but it allows us to go ahead and do farm work, farming, growing, and the like, without having to spend huge amount on payroll. Gardening and urban farming are things that are easy to teach. We can do it. We do some hydroponics and aquaponics in towers and the like, so we have a small footprint. So it doesn't not a lot of land costs, not a lot of water costs. So that's how we came around to do it the way we do it, is mostly because of access to the labor force that we have.
And then, Jeff, can you explain to our listeners who you target to be your labor force and why it's such a unique opportunity to work at Boise Vertical Farm as opposed to their other community service options?
The unique opportunity with Boise Vertical Farms is you can, during the right time of year, you can work outdoors. You get the chance to work with plants. You get a chance to grow food for others, and that's a key to help prevent relapse, is getting people to do things for others and get out of themselves. Addiction is a very self-centered disease, isolating. We try to get people involved and get them to communicate, socialize with their peers. We try to have people work in all areas of our operation. We teach a lot of new and different things, alternative farming, environmental. We try to do everything in a cycle, as in that we can use what we discard, we try to find another use for to use again and keep it going. So we reduce our footprint.
And then it's the idea that this looks good on the resume, but also is the hope that they can then find employment in a farm in Boise.
It's more than that. We do have a lot of people that when we do get payroll, we'll move them up in our organization. And there are other farming operations coming along that are doing hydroponics and aquaponics. We've got, in the future, we will see some larger operations, and our goal is to become the larger operations farm club. So we can take in people and teach them the basics and turn them loose. To me, in an employment world, we can do the perfect vetting for people to get ready for another level. Most of the people that we get from the court systems are 20s and 30s. Most of them need some direction. Most of them need something that interests them more than drugs and alcohol. You know, you've got to have choices in order to give something up to get something else that's better. But we try to move people along, and the key is keeping people clean and preventing rape.
I know you mentioned that the majority being younger side of the workforce. Your year-end letter also, went through the fact that the majority are also, the 20 to 30-year-old female. Do you know what the mechanism is that causes that to be the candidate for community service specifically?
Well, yes. In Idaho, we do mandatory minimum sentencing, which means that if you're in possession of X amount of drug and the law allows Y amount of drug, so if X is greater than Y, you are considered a dealer. So most of the people that get nailed for mandatory minimum sentences are not criminals. They're more than likely addicts. Very, very likely they're addicted to substances, but they are not selling. They're personal use, but mandatory minimum sentencing are like fishing with a net. You get everybody. You get everything, not just what you're looking for. The idea that that the legislature is trying to do is to capture people who are selling and get them off the streets. Great, but mandatory minimum sentences don't work. California, Oregon, Washington gave up mandatory minimum sentencing 25 years ago. So we capture a lot of people in that net. Idaho incarcerates more women by far than any other state in the United States. And that's why we have so many women in this age group that are stuck in prison. A lot of times they come with small children. So, that's why we are 60% women, 40% men in our program. I think is because we have, that's who's coming through the system. The system, of course, rather than being in the child business, because the children have to go someplace while mom's in prison. They try to get women through and out the front door, so the state doesn't have to provide everything for the children. Well, they get to the front door, of whatever jail they're stuck in, and the system says, go out, live long and prosper. Well, they don't have skills, they don't have transportation, they don't have money. That compounds the problem. You go back to what you know, if you've got no place else to go. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's why I think that's why we see many more women than men.
Yeah. And is that I mean, I'm assuming, but I want to also give you time to explain to the rest of us. I saw that your second initiative for the farm is to provide employment resources, especially childcare. What is childcare the biggest employment resource you actually see that's needed?
No, actually bigger than childcare is transportation.
Hmm.
Transportation is always a problem because people have lost their license. They can't afford a car, they can't afford maintenance on a car, they can't afford gas. We have access from supporters for bus fare, but and we can hand out daily bus passes for people to get to us. We have a bus stop right across the street from the farm, but the problem is in order to get to us in Northwest Boise from Southeast Boise, it takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, three bus transfers in order for them to get to us. So transportation is probably top on our list. This is something that we would like to partner with people in order to solve this problem. The second thing is a poor work history. A lot of times people go to work in a place that's easy to get work and last until the first paycheck, and then they're off blowing the paycheck up their nose or whatever, and go from job to job. So they particularly target jobs that are easy to get, and that works out for women in particular. It works out fast food, back of a restaurant, the sort of things where people, very transient work population, they come and go rapidly. That's the next thing. And then for what I found for me was a drug record, was having arrest record. If you have to check, I've been arrested on the application or during fact finding when you're applying for the job, background checks, it always comes up and it always gets you every time. So yeah, those are primarily the things that we look. Child care is going to be a real challenge. So, but that's not first on our list, but we'll get there.
Okay. Yeah. And the background check piece, I mean, that excludes entire industries of work from somebody.
Yes, exactly. And it follows you forever.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jeff, one of the things I've been thinking through, and again, I'm in healthcare. So, most of the people that are working in recovery, they're doctors and nurses. And we've actually got some pretty good programs for that here in Texas. But as the employer, you have to be incredibly thoughtful about how you set it up. So, when I was thinking about Boise Vertical Farms, I'm curious, when you have an entire workforce that's in recovery, how does that impact your organization culturally? Like if somebody doesn't show up for work, do you go to their house to make sure they're safe? And if someone's having a rough day, is there a word to say, I really want to use, can somebody help me? Do you plan for higher absentee rates? Just what kind of dynamic does it create?
Well, lots of dynamics, and the key to working with the population is patience, because these folks are in early recovery. A lot of them have been using off and on for several years. When when you're in when you're an addict, the whatever substance you're using, it doesn't matter what it is, it alters your brain chemistry. So people are coming off the whatever drug they've been using and abusing, and they're having a hard time functioning and finding their way around. I mean, yes, I check on them. If they don't show up, I'll check on them. If they've got a couple missed dates with us, we have the ability to go back to the judge that's operating the case in whatever court it is, and say, "Hey, judge, this person hasn't been towing the line," and they will sanction them. They will give them something somewhat undesirable to do. So, I mean, we try to stay away from that because our goal is to put this behind you. Everything that we do in recovery is punitive. We put people in jail, we give them I mean, even community service hours are punitive. I mean, a lot of times they don't want to be working with me. They'd rather be doing something else, and we'd rather give them something else to do to say, hey, put this behind you we don't care how you get here, but let's get out of this hole and move forward. It's an interesting population to work with. We find that for our second initiative, that for as far as employment resources are concerned, and training, teaching, education, et cetera, we want to bring people in to find a career, something that lights them up, something that gets them going, something that they can invest in. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. We talked before the show, and you'd mentioned to us that, the farms are in a neighborhood and you work with landlords and other individuals in the community. I'm assuming that interaction brings a different context to the workforce at the farm and the neighborhood in total, and really gives it a community feel. Is that the case?
Well, yes. Yeah. We the neighborhoods we're in, we make sure that the neighbors know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it to be a surprise to anybody that the people that are coming in have been in trouble with the law. But what really works for us is showing the people that are the neighbors and the like, and the communities that we're in, that we make these people work. We don't have people sitting around. When they come to work, we've got plans for places for them to be. I don't try to do anybody in, but I hand people shovels and say, let's go. And I keep them moving. So
Mm-hmm.
we make people sweat, and there's nothing better than that and sometimes people don't come back because, they're not ready. We're only 1 in 4 of the people that we get are really ready to move on. And those are the people that we invest in first. And second, we keep an eye on everybody, but I can guarantee you the ones that aren't ready, we'll see them again. They'll be back. They always are. So, but it changes the dynamic in that on the positive side, it gives us the chance to show the neighbors and the like that
Mm-hmm.
that they're, when they're looking at me, they're not seeing a street person. They're seeing somebody that's done some things, done some really stupid things, and done some okay good things. But we want to show that the typical idea of the homeless, alcoholic, drug addict, and the like doesn't really apply in what we're trying to do. We have had physicians through our program. We've had lawyers. We've got electrical engineers. We've got real estate people. We've got nurses. We've got, so we've seen some pretty darn high functioning folks. They just happen to have the disease of addiction. And that's what we're trying to teach, is that you wouldn't send somebody to prison for having diabetes. Why do I go to prison for having a substance abuse problem?
That's awesome. That's great to see the neighborhood and the neighbors really starting to embrace and change that attitude.
Well, we tried to get them to interact. We have summer concerts. We'll bring in a band. They're non-alcohol. They're clean because they have to be. But we'll bring people in. We invite the neighborhood to come, interact, talk to people, and it's amazing how interesting the neighbors find the people that they've got next door. In fact, the neighbors show up to see these people and visit with them. So, yeah, we're trying to change that paradigm of that we're all hardened criminals.
Yeah.
We're not.
It's a lot less scary for people when they see a face and a name behind it. Yeah. So I am curious, your people that work there together, as they start to really get to know each other and show up more often, in particular the ones that are ready to be in recovery, do you find that they end up holding each other accountable? That it's almost like an intentional support group?
That's exactly where recovery happens. Exactly. The best part of recovery is we get a lot of community support, a lot of community volunteers. These are people who like to garden, and have a history of drug issues. They're clean, long-term clean. One of the keys to our program is mentorship. So we bring in the mentorship, and we have people work together and they talk. And that's where recovery happens, is they're talking about their issues, they're talking about their problems, they're asking for advice on how to solve this, that, or six other things. But the mentors who have been through this or are a little older, a little more mature, they we don't try to force this down anybody's throat, because that's the old way of doing it. We try to say, okay, you might try this or not, but I can tell you what will happen if you don't try this. You're going to end up in jail and you could potentially die young, but it's up to you how you want to live your life. So, but that's a real key. That's another key part of is communicating with people who have experience and having mentorship.
Sure. That's a beautiful approach. So, Jeff, you have accomplished a lot already in just a few years. What's next for Boise Vertical Farm?
Well, we're doing well with our first goal. When we started out in 2019, we set 3 goals. Goal 1 was getting a workforce coming consistently, and these are the people that are coming for community service. We'll select on average 1 out of 4 of those people who are ready to move on, who have interest in picking up and getting additional education, we would really like to work in the trades. There's something like 400,000 trade jobs that go unfilled. Skilled trade, we found that there's quite a few women who are moving into some pretty heavy trades like HVC, truck driving, some of the traditional male things, carpentry and the like. So we're hoping that with their need for people to work, we can move people into train and have that move through. Nothing against fast food or the like, but that's typically where a woman ends up, and the environment isn't necessarily clean and sober. So you're exposed, especially if you're working in a bar, pub, or whatever. You're working around people who are using, you're working around people who are drinking, you're always around alcohol. It's not a great environment. And the hours are horrible if you have little kids. You're working nights and that doesn't help much. So, but yeah, so we're working along to get to that second step. We're applying for grants to help us fund that and get that next step off the ground.
That's incredible. You bring up a good point in, what kind of job the person gets into. And I know the numbers are hard, and especially with the population you have, but do you have any idea of like what your success rate is versus like somebody ends up at a restaurant or something like that?
Well, we have to do much more for seeing where we're at and how we're doing. I mean, we're working on a follow-up program, and that's one thing that doesn't happen nowadays, with the way the system is now. There's no follow-up. You don't know what happens to these people until you see them come back to jail. And they do, of course, a lot. But we need to follow up. We're working on a program where we can reach out to people and say, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Anything we can help you with. So we're working on that. In 2022, we had 30, I think it was 35 or 36 people through the program from court systems, and we had all but 4 finish their hours and stay clean. We had we lost four. Two of them we know relapsed and went back to it. Two of them just disappeared. I mean, this is a transient population, so tracking is tough. But we know that we're having better results than the national average. And to me, 1 point better than national average is worth doing. And we do it. I think the answer for doing it and being successful at it is one person at a time. Capture everybody, do everything for everybody all at once. Doesn't work. These people are individuals, and each problem is a personal issue, is a one person sort of problem. They might be repetitive, but in the person's mind, they're unique. You know, that they're the only ones that had a rotten childhood. They're the only ones that this, that, and 20 other things. Yeah. So that's what we're continuing to work on.
That's hugely inspiring, and thank you for doing that. One of the curious questions I always have, especially when someone's out there, changing their little corner of the world, I know you mentioned the vertical harvest earlier, but who or what other organizations do you draw inspiration from to keep doing your work and stay vibrant?
One in particular, and one we've been working with since the very beginning, is Unshattered in New York. It's way outside New York City. It's a burb, but it was started by a woman who is, a physicist or something like that, highly educated, no family whatsoever involved in drugs and alcohol, but she started this organization, and Unshattered deals with women particularly on women who have been incarcerated. These are women from prison, and she takes them in, teaches them how to repurpose things out of used leather, used fabric, and the like, and they create handbags, personal items, gifty items, decorating items. They teach them sewing skills and the like, and then they turn around and sell these in boutiques in New York City. And it's a big deal because it draws people, and she has been extremely successful. But we followed a lot of what she has done and the way she's organized things from the very beginning. And we stay in touch pretty regularly. But that is one, Unshattered. They have a great website. Check them out. Another one that is one from here in Boise, it's called Rolling Tomato. That one is food recovery. So her name is Julie, that runs Rolling Tomato. She goes out and she finds people to donate produce. Grocery stores, people like us, we donate to her when we have excess produce. We'll give up our produce to her, but she keeps food out of the landfill. Food that is still good. It may not be beautiful, but see, as consumers, American consumers are picky.
Yeah, we need a pretty apple, not an ugly one.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have a tomato that has a bruise on it, because you couldn't possibly just cut that off and use it. It's got to be perfect from the store. Now, and apples, you can't have a mark on them and all that other stuff. So last year she repurposed 385,000 pounds of food, and she sends it to pantries, kitchens, veterans organizations, senior homes. But the whole thing is a matter of network. She's got a network to draw from, and she's got a network to deliver to. And yeah, she runs the food in between. So that works out to about $250,000 in unwasted food that ended up being consumed before it went to the landfill. So that's another organization.
Super inspirational. If someone's listening, what can they do to help contribute towards your mission?
Well, write a big check. Write a big check and send. The produce that we grow And we also have a wood shop. We put people in the wood shop to build things out of recycled wood. We have planters and we have all sorts of cool things. But what we grow and what we sell account for 50% of our operation expenses. So the other 50% we make up with grants and donations. So we always, as with any nonprofit, we always have a cash flow problem. It's really hard to stay in front of the curve as a small nonprofit. $1, $5, 7 figures, anything around that area works really well for us. For people in Boise, come and see us. We do farmers markets. We sell our goods at Boise Co-op. That's our local long time health food store in Boise. We have a market online. You can order online. We'll ship to you. Just support us in what we do. The people that we're involved with don't want a handout. They just want a hand up. They just want a chance. And that's where second chance employment comes in. You've burned all your bridges. Nobody will have anything to do with you. And we give a chance to help get people moving forward, keep people clean. So the idea is a hand up, not a handout.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your story, your efforts, and your time. And thanks for joining us.
You betcha. Thank you. I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about what we do and what we want to do.
What an incredible program and approach to recovery. I so appreciate Jeff's transparency about his own struggles, his commitment to help one person at a time, and the way he is changing how people view humans with the disease of addiction. If you'd like to learn more, find them at BoiseVerticalFarm.com.